Hi, good evening. We're just going to have a look at a couple of exercises and look at just a brief overview of Miller and Modigliani, Proposition 1 and 2. There's also some PowerPoint slides which you should have a look at, which I think will help quite a bit as well. So I'm just going to share the smartboard with you and then we'll have a look at this. So again, these are in your PowerPoint slides, but we do want to have a look at just an overview. So M&M, Proposition 1, value of the firm. So Proposition 1 is value of the firm. Proposition 2, weighted average cost of capital. So in a world with no taxes, VU, the value of an unlevered firm, is simply the cash flows discounted that are generated by the assets of the business. So the unlevered firm, no debt, is the same value as a levered firm. And again, this is in a world only with taxes, or no taxes, sorry. Value of the firm determined by cash flows generated by assets. So Proposition 1, with taxes, so this is the second case 2 with taxes. The value of the levered firm is now the value of the unlevered firm plus the debt tax shield. So the debt dollar amount times the tax rate, that's the perpetual tax shield, the present value of that perpetual tax shield. So you can see now with taxes, the value of the levered firm is greater than the value of the unlevered firm by the tax shield provided with the deductibility of interest. Now, Proposition 2 looks at weighted average cost of capital. So this case 1, again, with no taxes, we have the weighted average cost of capital formula, equity over total value times the cost of equity plus debt over total value times the cost of debt. This equation rather is rearranged into what we see here with the cost of equity RE equal to RA, which is the risk of the firm itself inherent in the asset's earning ability. And then the second component is the financial risk as a result of assuming debt. And we'll look at just how this is derived from the top equation in a minute. Now when we go to the next case, Proposition 2, case 2 with taxes, the only thing that changes is at the end, the DV times RD, we now multiply by 1 minus the tax rate. So in Proposition 2, case 2 with taxes, weighted average cost of capital actually decreases as we add more and more debt. This section here relates to the CAPM, and we're looking at the beta for a levered company is the beta of an unlevered company times 1 plus the debt to equity ratio. In a world with taxes, we add 1 minus T to that equation. This is the equation we provided for you to use on your case analysis. So let's look at just deriving that formula, just so we feel comfortable where it came from. So the best approach is we have D over V. So I'm going to set V equal to debt plus equity, which is what it is. It's the total value of the firm. But it'll work a lot easier when we try and simplify this to change B to D plus E and then start simplifying. Okay, so you'll note that by multiplying each term by D plus E over E, I cancel out this item. I cancel out this item, and I'm left with debt to equity. Here, I'm simply left with RE. And over here, I'm going to multiply this to both these terms. So I'm going to have RA times D plus RA times E, and that's all over E. So let's have a look then. When we start simplifying this some more, we divide E into each term, so get rid of one E. Okay. So I'm left with RA times D over E equal to RE plus D over E times RD. So this one E's canceled out here, and I'm left with the RA and then the D over D times RAD, and then we still have the one E left, right? Okay, so simplify this further. I want to get my equity on the one side, right? So I'd like to get this over here. So I'm going to move this term. Let's subtract that from this. So when I do that, I've now got what I had originally here, RA times D over E minus DE times RD that's what I subtracted here, this term, and that's all equal to RE. Sorry, this is a plus sign here. So this was plus when I simplified that. So that's my plus sign. So I've got a common denominator here. I've got RA, and I've got D over E minus D over E RD. So my common denominator is my debt to equity, right? So I'm going to pull that out first. So I've got RD equal to D over E RA minus RD. And that's plus RA. So that term is still left from before. I just got those terms left here because I subtracted that term over there. So RA plus RA minus RD times D plus D. And so that's our derivation of this formula there. So D, RA, I'm just switching the equation around, plus this way. And that's just how we get our formula derived from that. So next we want to just look at a few exercises. We'll look at question 13 in the textbook, and we're looking at using the Miller-Modigliani equation. So we're looking at chapter 16, question 13. So we have Laurier Corp. Has no debt, but can borrow at 6.4%. The firm's weighted average cost of capital is currently 9.5%. The tax rate, 35%. So what is the company's cost of equity? So if the company has no debt, the cost of equity is simply 0.095 because there is no debt in the company. Okay, so no debt, so total cost of capital, same as the cost of equity. In B, we're looking at what is the company's unlevered cost of equity, what the firm converts to 25% debt, what will its cost of equity be? So now we have 25% debt. So in part B, we're using the equation we just looked at, Miller-Modigliani's case 2 with taxes, proposition 2, case 2, and RU is the same as RA, it's the unlevered cost, just the inherent in the asset. So we have 0.095 times 0.095 minus the cost of debt. Our debt to equity ratio of 0.25 to 0.75 times 1 minus 0.35 the tax rate. Okay, so we have RE equal to 0.095 plus 0.067. So we end up with a cost of equity with this level of debt at 10.17%. In C, we're looking at 50 for half debt, half equity, so 0.5 to 0.5, so debt to equity is 1. And if we use that in our formula, we see our cost of equity increasing, which we expect equity increases as debt goes up. So we have 11.52%. In question D, what is the company's weighted average cost of capital in part B and in part C? So to calculate that, we use our weighted average cost of capital formula. We have cost of debt 6.4%, and then we have two different costs of equity. So if we're looking at 25% debt, 75% equity, we have a cost of equity of 10.17. And if we're looking at half debt, half equity, we have our cost of equity 11.52. So when you calculate the cost of capital in both cases, for 25% debt, should have a weighted average cost of capital of 8.67%. At 50% debt, using the same equation, we should end up weighted average cost of capital equal to 7.84%. So our cost of equity is going up, but we're adding more and more debt, and the tax shield, that's more than offsetting the increase in equity. So we see if we add more debt, our weighted average cost of capital is decreased. So that's on your assignment, so you should have enough information to finish that up now. Next, we'll look at question 17. So this is looking at value of firm. Question 13 is looking at weighted average cost of capital. Question 17 is looking at value of the firm. So that's Miller-Modigliani Proposition 1. So you'll recall we have our formula. The value of the unlevered firm is the EBIT with taxes 1 minus the tax rate over the cost of equity for the unlevered firm. So RU or RA. Okay, the book and the slides switch back and forth a bit on those. So the value of our unlevered firm, no debt, simply take EBIT times 1 minus the tax rate, 35%. Our cost of equity, 0.15. We have the value of the unlevered firm, $85,583.33. Next, we want to look at 50% debt. So we have, and note this is a better way to look at it is the debt to value. It's not, we want to just know how much debt is outstanding of the particular company. So it's not debt to equity, debt to value of the firm. So we know the value of the firm up here already. And so we just need to know how much is debt. We know 50% of the value of the firm is debt. Right, so that's our term over here. Our VU is the 85,583. Debt to total value of the firm is top debt, so we know it's 50%. The ratio, 35% is our tax rate. So we have V over V times the value of the unlevered firm times the tax rate. And we take our 85,583 here, plus this, so we have 0.5, the debt to the value of the firm is 1/2, times the tax rate, times the unlevered amount we had originally. So we can see if we had more debt in the world with taxes, no bankruptcy costs, the value of the firms increase. Okay, so now if we, in the next case, it's 100% debt. So the only thing that changes is this 0.5 becomes 1. The debt is the full value of the firm, so this term becomes 1. And when you calculate that, you should get the value of your unlevered firm, or sorry, of your levered firm of a fully 100% debt. And that's what you should get. So try that on your assignment. You should get that answer, but make sure you work through them. Make sure you understand the general concept. And hope you find this helpful. And like I say, if you have any questions, we can look at them in class. Thanks, and I hope you found this helpful.